The real reason why the Dallas Mavericks fired Nico Harrison, and it is not, according to them, having to do with the Luka trade. Do you actually buy it? We're going to get into that. Plus, what does this mean for Anthony Davis and his trade situation? Because some new information came to light today, which could change the way everybody looks at that. I'm Trevor Lane. This is the Basketball Bulletin. Make sure you subscribe right here to the channel. Joining me is Donnie Freeman. Donnie, still we say it's 70%. It's holding steady. 70% of people watching the channel are not subscribed. We got to get people to subscribe. Hit that subscribe button, everybody.
Yes, sir. We're trying to grow this thing out. By the way, for everyone that has subscribed, thank you, especially if you've been around from the beginning where the channel was obviously much smaller. It's been amazing. So thank you for your support, and we want to keep this thing going. So we appreciate it.
Absolutely. And we appreciate when you guys support the companies that help support us. So like Sleeper is our presenting sponsor. If you guys wouldn't mind clicking the link in the description and checking out Sleeper, great way to help our channel continue growing. All right, let's talk a little bit about this. This is from Sports Illustrated. Roe Parrish of CBS Texas said, Mark Cuban told me on Tuesday on the record, while the fans' voice did play a factor in Nico Harrison's firing, ultimately it was the team's performance. But the largest reason, Nico's mismanagement of the Mavs salary cap, which led to a lack of flexibility last season and this season. So essentially what they're saying is that, the Luka trade kind of matters. Yeah, the fans being pissed off kind of matters.
Yeah.
And yes, it was team performance, but it was because the team was losing. But it was really that the numbers were a mess. That was the problem, which they were. But to me, that ranking,
that's out of order.
Like, it's out of order. Like, what are we talking about? The Luka trade's one of the worst trades in NBA history. What are we talking about? The salary cap management was the biggest concern. Come on. I just don't buy this.
Yeah. Also, again, it keeps skirting under the radar, but he also had another terrible trade in there too. So it's Nico is so polarizing because there were things he tried to do that didn't work out, but he ultimately put together such a great roster. And then out of nowhere is like, you know what? Screw all these guys. I'm going to do what I want to do. He puts himself in the highest position of power, basically. I heard some of the other guys that covered the team saying basically Dumont had no choice but to fire him because Nico had just so much power within the organization that he didn't really have much of a choice anyway, which is a whole different thing. And so ego gets a hold of Nico and he's like, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. So just crazy mismanagement all around. But yeah, the salary cap thing, that mattered, right? Like last year they got to a point where they were missing all these guys and they were on the verge, and we haven't seen that in I don't know how long. They were on the verge of having to forfeit basketball games. I remember when that first started happening, you and I talked, we were like, there's no way this is going to happen. But it actually almost became true because the NBA didn't give them any sort of outs or any sort of special treatment or any way to offset that. So they were almost in that position, and you just can't get there. Now, obviously, a bunch of other things had to happen to get there. But still, that was because they couldn't bring in anybody else. And I do think that the team performance matters as well. If this team is 8-3, he's still in his role. He's not fired, I think. But I think that obviously the fan sentiment was very important. The Luka trade, Patrick Dumont said that, basically that was something that they made a mistake on, if I recall correctly, with that fan at the courtside thing a few days ago. And then obviously another piece of this is that their arena's damn near empty, dude. Like their courtside was damn near empty, all that stuff. Like, I'm sure that's a huge part of this too. There's so many things here, I think, that are in play. I just can't say that mismanagement of the salary cap is at the top of the list.
Well, I want to get into why that might be the messaging coming from Mark Cuban and the Mavs right now, that, oh, no, it's not really this Luka thing. But let's get to that in just a moment. We do need to give a shout out to our great presenting sponsor, and that is Sleeper. Donnie, you're in the spotlight right now for this. You won't be in just a second because I want to go through a couple of things here. I know you enjoy the spotlight, but the NBA season is here. You have a chance to 1,000x your cash on daily fantasy basketball. It's never been more exciting than it is right now with players like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Luka Doncic, Nikola Jokic, many, many more. You can pick on stats for these stars like points, rebounds, assists, and get up to a 1,000x payout on Sleeper. Get your picks right and you can win big, especially if you use our promo code, and that is Bulletin. Get a 100% match up to $100. As we said, we really appreciate it when you guys support the companies that help support us and keep us growing. I did throw together a few picks here. Was digging through. looking through some of the numbers on here to see what we could get. I saw that Steph Curry free square. Got to take that one. That's always a must whenever you have a freebie like that. But I was looking through, kind of scrolling through everything, thinking, all right, what about John Collins? He's a favorite of mine. Could he be somebody that I go with? Ultimately, though, saw Luka sitting there. Revenge game tonight against New Orleans after a tough loss against the Thunder. Said, yep, I'm going to take Luka going over 34.5 points in this one. Have a feeling he's a flamethrower. And then, Donnie, I'm never going to pick against Steven Adams and rebounding the ball, especially in a game against the Blazers where there's a lot of possessions because they play at a really fast pace. So went with Steven Adams rebounds as well. And if I get this one, if I am able to get this right, would be a $10 entry would be $57. So again, guys, if you agree with me on these picks, go check out Sleeper, get that 100% match up to $100. Use that code Bulletin. Use the link in the description down below. And again, don't forget to put in our code. We really appreciate it when you guys help support the companies that help support us. Thank you again, everybody. All right, let's get back into our topic at hand. And that is the situation going on with the Mavs.
Lying. That's what it is.
The Mavs lying. So why would Mark Cuban be putting that out there? Well, remember, you've got Patrick Dumont had to sign off on the Luka trade, right? He had to sign up. So if you're coming out now and saying, well, the Luka trade was the reason why Nico Harrison got fired, that's also an admission of guilt of sorts by Patrick Dumont that he made the incorrect, because Nico can't make that trade by himself. He could certainly, and all the reporting has been that he did present the idea. He was the driving force behind it. It was his plan, all of that. That's fine. But Patrick Dumont has to be the one to say, yes, let's do this. Had Mark Cuban still been the owner, there's no way in hell he would have done this. He would not have made that trade. So if you are right now coming out and saying Nico got fired because of the Luka trade, that also requires throwing a little bit of shade at the owner of the team, Patrick Dumont. And I can see why the Mavs might want to distance themselves from that type of sentiment.
Well, that's where it's tricky because unfortunately, Nico is in the highest position of power that can be removed from that position. You can't go through and fire the owner, right? So he doesn't have any other, there's nothing else that could happen. You know, Shams got on TV and said, oh, it was Nico's idea, but everyone was in lockstep. You know, we weren't even sure about Kidd, but apparently Kidd was aware of it. At first, it seemed like he wasn't, but Shams said, no, he was aware of it and all of that. Dumont obviously had to sign off on it. And so all these guys, you know, there was this plan and they put it together and it all worked. And Shams said that in terms of Dumont, we already know he's not like super into basketball. His family's into other things. But that being said, he doesn't know a ton about it. So Nico was somebody that positioned himself. He got his ear and he said, hey, I know this, we do this. This is what happened. Here's a success. We got to the finals, all this stuff. And so he got to a point where he just basically listened to whatever Nico said. If you think this is the right idea, let's do it. And they didn't understand the sentiment. Nico himself came out and said he didn't understand that it would blow up like this. So for this situation specifically right now, they have to move this way. They can't say, oh, yeah, we certainly shouldn't have done that, because the organization still is technically tainted, right? I saw fans like obviously being excited about Nico being gone. That's amazing. That's great. I have no problem with that. But there's still other pieces in play that, especially for the owner, isn't going to go anywhere, right? Well, this was a unilateral decision.
And when thinking about the way Patrick Dumont handled things and just kind of deferring to Nico, maybe deferring to Nico and solely Nico is a problem. Maybe it should be listening to other voices in the front office as well and not just one. But isn't this also kind of what you want from an owner? Write the checks and stay out of the way?
Yeah. But the problem is that Nico froze out everybody else mostly. Yeah. Like he kicked out people from the organization that didn't agree with him or his philosophies. He froze all these other people out of the organization. And so even in that situation, while that is mostly what you want, in most cases, you don't want to have an owner that comes in and is too hands-on, right? Yeah. But at the same time, even if he would have approached other people, they would have basically been in lockstep with Nico anyway. And that's the environment that Nico cultivated. So
now, ironically, Brett Siegel from Clutch Points had an article out today about the Lakers were apparently ahead of the Luka trade, very quietly canvassing the market about an Anthony Davis trade. And they were not happy that Anthony Davis was showing up out of shape. and was not able to stay healthy, which is very ironic because here's essentially the way this is portrayed, Donnie, that the Lakers talked to a number of teams, including the Celtics, about a deal that ultimately it would not have happened until the next summer. So this past summer is when they were looking to do something. It wasn't going to be a midseason thing. But around December of last year, according to Siegel, the Lakers started canvassing the league. And some teams didn't take them seriously, didn't think they would actually trade AD, but they started bringing AD up in trade conversations. Nico got wind of this, heard through the grapevine that the Lakers were talking Anthony Davis trades, and ran the Rob and said, wait. If you're trading AD, we want in. How about Luka?
Right. If you make that call, you're like, oh, I'm putting this guy with Luka. We're going to win a championship. Kyrie. Wait, what? For Luka?
Right. So all of this, and again, the irony being that the reason why the Lakers were going to move on from AD or looking to move on from him, especially after he made comments about he was upset about not playing the center, which is ironic because he put on a bunch of weight now that he can actually play power forward with the Mavs when he's out there. But the irony being that the reasons why the Mavs and Nico believed that they couldn't win a championship with Luka, in part because of conditioning, were the reasons why the Lakers were shopping Anthony Davis themselves.
Yeah. But it's ironic on both ends. They both took each other's players that they had problems with for conditioning. Like it's pretty interesting, right? Like
the difference is the Lakers got slim Luka, then the Mavs got fat AD.
Yeah. And
AD
the Lakers,
went fat Thor.
The Lakers got the better player when fat anyway. So
yes,
and he's like 6 years younger. So like, but this still doesn't make sense. But it's ironic all around, really.
But so the Lakers' worries about potentially, turning the franchise over to AD in a post-LeBron era and feeling less and less confident in that got them to think about pivoting towards some type of a quick rebuild whenever LeBron walked away when they still had AD. And that rebuild would have included, hopefully we'll have cap space to go after a Giannis, a Luka, a Jokic, a player of that caliber. And them just kind of poking around got word out a little bit, the buzz out a little bit, and Nico heard it and came a running with a Luka trade as soon as he heard his buddy AD might be somewhat available. So the Lakers doing a little bit of work in the early going ultimately led to them getting Luka Doncic, a player that they didn't think would be available at all. They thought he would not be. And to me, though, Donnie, that should be the biggest reason why Nico is gone now, not the salary cap management stuff. Like he should absolutely call and inquire about AD, but it should be, as you said, about pairing AD with Luka. If you're hearing the Lakers are talking trade,
it's a nasty pairing, dude. Like that's easily, I think, championship favorite if you pair those two together and you keep Kyrie. Oh my God. Like it's so perfect. Right. But in terms of Anthony Davis, I mean, the sad reality of it all is that after 2020, there was a short turnaround the following season, like a month or whatever it was, something stupid like that. That was there was a gap in the middle of that 2020 season, but the real season that was impacted, I think, heavily by all of that was 21, because the short turnaround, the no fans in stands, we're still dealing with the ramifications of it, like all these other things. And anyway, AD he's hurt that season. He struggled to stay healthy, and then for the seasons after that, he started to come in out of shape, and fans have questioned whether or not he got content. The Laker fans were questioning whether or not he got content from winning that one championship. That was a fan sentiment around Anthony Davis. If he still had that fire, that drive. And I think after a few
and that
years,
was from within the Lakers too. They had those concerns.
That after a few years, I think it really came back and you started to see it with him. And then he plays 76 games, things like that. He got tired of being called street clothes and it just kind of didn't really continue from there. But the fact that you even get to a point with him where you start questioning some of these things, the motor, the ethic, all these other things. And then of course, the health issues that have always been a part of his career. I think that all of these things compound. And if you're the Mavs, there's no way you should be pulling for a trade for Anthony Davis. But I do think that in terms of this situation specifically, the Lakers also very openly were trying, and LeBron from day one was very openly trying to have Anthony Davis be the next guy. But the problem with that was and is that Anthony Davis is not a playmaker. And so as a result, his touches were always going to be less than LeBron's in most cases, right? His shot volume would be up, but LeBron would have the ball more because he'd be setting him up, things like that. And the Lakers really valued that. I remember, and I'm not going to forget a report that came out shortly after the Luka trade, that they really wanted another playmaker to come in, somebody that can handle the rock and be that guy that's a for sure thing. And then also on top of that, you have a higher ceiling with Luka, regardless of age. You have a higher ceiling with Luka as your number one than you do with Anthony Davis as your one, because you had a 8 to 10 year window with that before he came to LA. Like, you already know what that's like. So I think that there's a few different factors here for the Lakers, and that he was aging out. He's 32. He's got 1 or 2 years left in prime area. The health concerns, all these things kind of just compound, right?
Well, and now all this stuff that we're talking about, the reasons why the Lakers were growing concerned about Anthony Davis, are now going to be big factors for the Mavs, who are, let's face it, most likely going to try to trade Anthony Davis between now and the trade deadline, now that they've got, new voices in charge here. And teams are going to be concerned about, number one, the injuries, the age, but also he's going to want an extension next summer.
Yeah.
Limit the market for him as well, because teams are going to say, do we want to get long-term into the Anthony Davis business? Right? He already has 3 years under contract, including this year, but do we want to get long-term into it? Do we want to be the team that's paying a 37-year-old Anthony Davis? Because that's what you're talking about. If you're going to trade for him and give him that and give him an extension next summer. So that, I think it's going to be a bit, I don't think it will be a non-existent market. I think he's still very, very good. There will be teams that will want Anthony Davis, but I don't know that the return the Mavs are going to get is going to be one that will make Mavs fans happy.
Yeah, I did my video yesterday on Anthony Davis to Chicago. I walked away thinking there's reasons Chicago could do it, but there's also a lot of reasons why they shouldn't do it. And some of that's just the same things we talked about: health, age, etc., not exactly on their timeline. And if they're just trying to be a plucky second round exit, then fine. But otherwise, but the big thing was extension. Like, I just think, I think he's got, like I said, 1 to 2 more years of like prime AD. And then from there,
when he's on the court.
Yeah, and then from there, because he's 32, but the body's probably like 40 now. Let's be honest, because all the injuries, let's go 38, because all the injuries, right? And so he's going to be a guy that's starting to get more limited mobility unless he starts taking his health and nutrition more seriously, and his body and all that stuff, the size and stuff like that. Far be it from me to tell a pro athlete what to do, right? But I think these are things that he needs to consider doing, in my opinion, anyway, and doesn't need to be showing up at 260 plus. He needs to get closer to his 2020 size, around 235, 240, play in that range, and maybe that could help him out, especially if he doesn't want to play the center. That's another thing. The Chicago Bulls really could use a rim protecting center. They didn't so much need a power forward, in my opinion. But that being said, I think that in terms of trading for Anthony Davis, there are very clear positives, because at his core, he is still one of the best rim lob threats of all time, one of the best rim protectors ever, somebody that you can build a very good, very cohesive defense around. Even in limited mobility, he's still able to be that. And I think he will continue to be that for a number of years. And he's still a guy that can score around the basket. The shot can come and go, but that's fine. So at his core, he is still these things, and he will still be somebody that's in the range of like an all-star type player, things like that, even as he gets into his mid-30s, I believe. But I just wonder if salary-wise, it would be wise to give him a max. Maybe he needs to do the KD thing where it's like, let's take a cut so we can extend this out for a few years. And I could be on this team that can help. As I start to regress, those guys can come up and they can help carry me a little bit too. And we can develop into this really good team. Right. And that's one thing that if he were to go to a younger team like Chicago, maybe that could be a factor. But I think with AD, it's just kind of tricky because of the age, the health, the salary, all these things kind of line up. And so if you're trading for him, and if you're Dallas, you're going to want to get back certainly a number of first round picks, young assets, etc. I just don't know if you're going to get that. And if you do get that stuff, it's going to be like protected, swap, this and that. Like, it's not going to be clear cut assets. Right.
Yeah.
And is that worth it? I don't know.
That's going to be the challenge now for the Mavs on the AD trade front. But, oh, man,
It sucks
Everybody,
to talk about this guy this way because at the end of my
he's so
video,
good.
at the end of my video yesterday, I was looking at it and I was like, man, I was going through the fan sentiment around him and the possibility of him getting traded, and it was so venomous, dude. And I'm like, this is so crappy because just a year ago we were talking about this guy. He was top 10 player. Game he played for LA was a 40-20 game. That first half with the Mavs, he was gangbusters. Like, this guy is so good, but the optics around him are so bad. Yeah. And it sucks, man. As a fan of his, it really does suck. But I don't know. I think there's some very clear teams he can go to and impact. He still is, like I said, that stuff, but it's going to be hard.
It is. It'll be a challenge, I think, for the Mavs. But I'm glad they moved on from Nico. I think that clears the air a little bit. And I mean, like, I don't want to see anybody fired, but I think it was just so obvious that it needed to happen for the organization, for the fans, all of that. Regardless of the reason, I don't buy for a second that the Luka trade wasn't why. That it was his cap management. The cap management was bad, but I don't buy that it wasn't the Luka trade. There wasn't all of that. But we'll see now what they do on the AD trade front. I don't think it's going to be an easy path for them. But everybody, give us your thoughts in the comments down below. What do you think happens now with Anthony Davis? And do you buy that it was really actually Nico's cap management and the fact that the team was off to a bad start this year? It was not the Luka trade that got him fired. Give us your thoughts in the comment section down below. Till next time, everybody. Oh, don't forget to subscribe as well. Till next time. See ya and stay safe.